only one name on the face of this earth that can keep you out of hell. It's not Baptist, it's not Methodist, it's not Presbyterian, it's not Catholic, it's not Jew. There's just one name that can keep you out of hell, and it's the name of Jesus.
Lighten up, Francis.
Hey there, and welcome to Ask an Atheist, the show where we sit down with folks who have let go of religion and aren't afraid to talk about it. I'm your host, Mike Smithgall. Today's episode features Mike Gonzalez, and we're diving into his personal journey from belief to disbelief and everything in between. Don't forget to subscribe and share the show if you like what you heard. Let's go.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I saw another one of your podcasts, and I thought, wow, this is a great way to be able to reach out to people. And if just one person watches one short of yours, or just hears just a couple seconds, it might make a difference in someone's life, you know?
Yeah.
And it could potentially save a lot of heartache and a lot of tears. You know,
well,
you and I have talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said that's totally, as other people might say, from your lips to God's ears.
Yeah. Right. Well said. Well said.
But you're right. When you reached out to me, you had watched a different video with a gentleman named Scott, who has a similar background, not exactly yours, but a similar background. And I actually was really happy about that because you responded exactly what I was hoping with. You know, you're someone that we've talked just briefly here and there over the last several years that we've known each other, but not, you know, we're not like friends. We don't really know each other well. I don't know your background. You don't know my background, but you connected with Scott. And you think, that's not his background. I connect with it. And that's exactly what I'm hoping is through these conversations. And I always tell people, you know, we're not here to bash Christians or any other religion. We're not here to do that.
No.
Now, someone's going to take offense no matter what, because it's just the way it works.
Oh,
but that's not
absolutely.
The purpose is there's a guy out there or a woman out there someplace that's like, I have these questions or I'm feeling this way. And maybe they see you and like, okay, he's doing exactly what I did. Or they see Annette, or I've got a woman coming up in a couple of weeks and think I connect with that person and I'm not the only person that feels this way. Somebody else has gone down this path a little ahead of me, and maybe they get a little bit of a help and some hint on what's coming up and how to handle this. And they're not the only one in their small little Nebraska town. Somebody else is in this road. Right.
And there's such a lack of compassion that I found in my experience. There's such a huge lack of compassion, even inside of Christianity. And they preach that God is love. And, you know, we'll get into that as the show goes on. But, yeah, when people like you and I, or anyone who just doesn't believe in any God, when we're going through our experience, sometimes there's compassion that is just missing from all of that. And when we can provide that for each other, that's where it's at. You know? Yeah.
That's the hope. So again, thank you for joining this one and telling us a little bit about your story. So let's start out with your story. So tell me, I know a little bit. You've given me a little bit of insight, just enough to know like where you're coming from. I purposely didn't ask you a lot of detail because I wanted to hear it for the first time and react just like our viewers are reacting. So tell us a little bit about how your religious background, you know, what kind of foundation were your religion that you were born into, like most of us, probably born into a religion, and the level of severity, and that's probably not the right word, but you know what I'm saying. How religious were you in your background?
So I was raised Lutheran, and from a very early age, from kindergarten all the way through 6th grade, I attended Lutheran school.
Okay.
And it was great. I felt like I felt like God was acting in my life. I was now I know that that's indoctrination, but what I'll do now is I'll just describe what I was experiencing, because there at some point there's this transition that takes place, and to illustrate that I think is valuable. But I was surrounded with the love of God, in my God loved my family. My father the Lord God is in heaven and Jesus died for my sins, all of these things. And I soaked it all in, and I felt moved, and just continued to move forward in my church. And in sixth grade came along, and my parents couldn't afford to continue sending me there.
Oh, okay.
So I went to public school. But every Wednesday, I went back for confirmation class. And I longed for that sense of community and that sense of belonging, because I was told, I wasn't necessarily told, but it's presented that we are the in-group and everybody else is other than. And it was real serious, because there I was in a public school. All my friends were still back at this Lutheran school that I had been attending.
Oh, yeah.
And I was having a completely different experience. There was no mention of God in a public school. So I had this struggle. So that's about where things become real different for me. And sixth grade, I get that rude awakening. Seventh and eighth grade, ninth grade. Now I've been in Boy Scouts for a while. I have, and Boy Scouts has, God and country,
Oh, yeah.
really strong in it.
My son was a scout. He's an Eagle Scout.
Yep. See,
So
and
I've
being
been
a
all
scout
through it.
is outstanding. I credit a lot of my I credit a lot of my the positive parts of myself to scouts, and actually to a positive way that I was brought up religiously. See, because it wasn't evangelical. We weren't told to hate anybody. It's the Lutheran Missouri Synod is what it really was.
Okay.
And so, and I know that I'm kind of wandering here, but what ended up happening was, because I was missing that feeling of oneness and inness with everyone at church, I was filling that in with the Boy Scouts, and I thought, well, I got to get involved in the church. So I joined the choir. The adult choir, was accepted into that. Then I started with the youth group, and I was just a part of the youth group. And they lost their youth group leader, and the pastor came to me and says, "Mike, you'd be a perfect youth group leader." So there I was, like maybe 16 years old, something like that, and I became the youth group leader. And the only thing that I asked was that I have an adult that supervises everything that I do. And they're like, "Yeah, no problem." And I took care of it. One day, my pastor comes up to me and he says, "We have a opening on the board for the church, and we'd like to have you there."
And you're still a kid at this time? You were still like 17 or so?
17 years old, 16 or 17. Yeah, so it was within about, I think, maybe an 8-month period. So I could have been 16 or 17. And I was the youngest board member in the Missouri Synod, the Lutheran Missouri Synod.
Man.
And I thought to myself, this is amazing. It was everything that I wanted.
Right.
But I had a question. And the question that I had was, why is there such horror and suffering in the world?
Yeah.
Why is God allowing this? And that really had me stuck. So I remember that now. I was 16 when that happened.
Okay.
And I was really stuck with that. And I thought to myself, well, I understand that God is the Alpha and the Omega, right? So that means to me that God can't change his mind. I'm coming up with all these things that philosophers have already talked about. Can God change his mind? Well, technically, no.
Right.
Can I forget the other there's a wonderful quote, and I didn't pull it up. I had it written down, but it talks about, is God all powerful? Well, then why does he stop terrible things from happening?
Mm-hmm.
And if he's not all powerful, well, then then is he God? So
Yeah.
I thought to myself, and I was always told the Holy Spirit is going to work in you, and you have to invite the Holy Spirit in, and you have to allow the Holy Spirit to provide you the answers in the Bible. And then it
Right.
occurred to me, man, I haven't read the Bible cover to cover. Why not? So I did.
That's a mistake for atheists.
And I was done. I was
Really?
done. Yeah. I couldn't even make it all the way through. I barely made it through. I think it was Job. And
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
this is bananas. And I told myself, I'm just going to keep on reading it. So then I get to the part in the Gospels where they talk about the birth of Christ. And I'm thinking, how is it possible that the birth of Christ in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are all the story of his birth is completely different. The story of his resurrection is completely different.
Yeah, it's a little question, isn't it? I've always wondered about that. Like, I don't even know how they did that. How they let that.
Yeah, how did that come up? And then
Yeah.
now I understand that it's because these were things that were written by different people who weren't around when Jesus was supposed to have been around.
Right.
And it came years later, and it's stories. And I thought, well, in my Native American culture, we have stories too.
Yeah.
And the story of Coyote interacting with Badger is told in this Brother Badger and Brother Coyote. That story is told from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast in any location that you have a coyote and a badger, right?
Oh, okay.
Their interactions. So I'm seeing these analogs, and I'm thinking, this is just people who didn't have answers,
Mm-hmm.
who are working towards trying to make sense of the world around them. And then, yeah, so I guess to answer your question, that's my that's where I ended up. That's where I landed.
You kind of arrived at this. So so as you were doing that, and you said you're 16, turning into 17, how long was that? Was that realization? Was it fairly sudden in the sense that I know you said you read the book, which is surprising, right? It's like, you actually read the book that you've been talking about for all your life at this point, or been hearing about and exposed to. But like almost all of us, reading the Bible is not actually high on the list of people that go to church. It sounds bizarre,
Right.
but atheists tend to be fairly well read in the Bible, because your story is not unique in the sense that a lot of atheists start to read, and that's what sparks the question. If they're at that point in their life, it could be young or old, doesn't really matter, where this just the intellectual curiosity starts to get a hold of them. And if someone doesn't step in and put a really hard stop on that by threatening you're going to go to hell, or, we don't do that kind of, whatever threat works, and threat's strong word, but it is what it is.
Oh, it is definitely a threat.
Will get the best of you, because you're like, this doesn't make sense. I can't quite buy it against whatever intellectual knowledge and experience and sort of foundation you have. And then you become this conflicted area. Like, I just can't buy living in the belly of a whale for 3 days. That seems impossible to me. And then all these are just sort of stories and analogies, but it depends on what religion. I don't know enough about Lutheran versus, say, Baptist, or I was raised Episcopal. I don't know how strict the word is. Is it literally what they say is exactly?
Oh, it's quite strict. The Lutheran Missouri Synod is considered Catholic light.
Okay, so okay. I was kind of thinking like Episcopal was that too. Like, our priests could get married. We had some of the same pageantry, but it wasn't quite as strict. We didn't really do sign of the cross. I mean, Virgin Mary was a character, but not the same way the Catholics hold them up.
Right. She's not a divine individual in any
Right.
any way for the Lutherans. No. In fact, Martin Luther, who is the father of Lutheranism, decried that heavily because
Oh,
it says
really?
there should be no gods before me.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
God says that, and you should not pray. It's when the disciples asked Jesus, "How, Lord, how should we pray?" He says, "Our Father who art in heaven." You take your prayers directly to God. That's what it clearly states in the Bible.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
the Catholic Church decided that they needed to have this intermediary, because as soon as the relationship is developed between the individual and the divine, it takes everything else out. You know, and Jesus says, "Wherever one or more of you are gathered together, there I am also." So that eliminates the church, and the church needed money, and they needed money, and they needed land and money. So
Money again.
Yep. So one of the great ways that they were able to do it was to establish that the Pope is God on earth, and Mary is an intermediary. You can only get to Mary through the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
You know, and so on and so forth. And any good religious scholar or any good priest Catholic priest will certainly agree to that. You know, there's no uncertain terms about that.
Yeah, there's not a lot of leeway in that
No.
process. So let me ask you this. Again, because I don't know enough of Lutheran, so I can't really make any assumptions, which is probably a smart thing to be on. How does that, and you're also in Missouri, and this is something else that it's always interesting. I talk to people from different parts of the country. I grew up in the South. Missouri's not technically the South, but it's the same style of culture. You know, it's a very, it's a conservative area, very much like the South. I grew up in Florida. So how did your church upbringing, and at this point you're now a leader in the church, you know, at least within your peer group, especially, how did that affect your outlook on the others, if you will, the outside world, and on yourself, and just any other thing? Because, you know, it's funny you mentioned 16, you know, and we talked about Boy Scouts. We always used to joke that Boy Scouts, a lot of times kids start to get out of it. You know, you can be into your 18, 15 and 16. We always used to talk about that's when the fumes get you. The car fumes and the perfumes. You know what I mean? Because they pull you away from really quick. Like, oh, I got a girlfriend. I can't make the meeting tonight. You know, I got a car. I gotta go. You know, drive around and be cool with my friends. You know, so it's really hard to keep kids in. And here you are at church and stuff like that. So you have all these things going on that all teenage boys have going on in our heads and stuff like that.
Yes.
How does the church in that upbringing, how does that affect you? Where are you? Are you shameful? Are you conflicted? Are you not trying to just like separate the two and compartmentalize? Tell me about that.
So my perception of the world was that it was a wonderful place where there are some people that were just misguided. And they just hadn't heard the word yet.
Okay.
Evangelism was the ticket to be able to get it out to everybody. And it's not their fault that they haven't heard it yet. It's just they haven't heard it yet. That's pretty much what we were taught. So then, I guess you could say homosexuality was looked at as a sin, just like any other sin. But nobody really drilled into it. You know, we didn't have, I'm sorry, what's that?
I was just like sort of casually mentioned as this is a bad thing and then moved on and just didn't dwell on it. Right. Okay.
Yep. But it was a mortal sin. And, you know, there's the, you know, mortal sins. You break the 10 Commandments and you don't repent. You're going to go to hell. And it never really became a big deal for me because there's something that's real important. I was kind of an oblivious kid. I had a girlfriend. And when my friends would say things like, oh, that's gay, or, you know, they would say derogatory things about homosexuality, just brush it off. It didn't occur to me. It wasn't a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think there was anything wrong with the way a guy looked. Turns out I was bi, but I was so unaware. I was very oblivious. So the pain of that didn't come until I was, like pretty much in the army by that time. And so my worldview was that the world is a wonderful place full of people that have or haven't heard the word. And I was just going to go about my business. And my mom would always tell me, she'd always say, Michael, you get too wound up. She'd say, you have to remember every morning when you wake up, you need to just say, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. And I thought, as long as I'm doing that, then the Holy Spirit's going to work through me. I'm probably going to become a pastor. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. And that's how I was going. But in the back of my mind, all these questions are coming up, like, I'm attracted to that dude.
Really?
This
is in high school or this is after school?
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I was about 16 or 6, about 16,
you're already starting
15,
to have
16.
these bisexual feelings as in that, again, mid-teens. Okay.
Yep.
And you kind of brushed on. I just want to go back to it because it's Pride Month, so let's hit these things. So at this point, I'm gonna, and I don't mean to get personal, too personal.
That's okay. I'm an open book. An open book.
That's good to know. So at this point, you think that guy's attractive, or you see it, but you also have a girlfriend.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you're exploring as kids do at this
yes.
age. But are you acting on the bisexual part? Are you acting on the guy part? Is that still like, I feel it?
No.
Or are you conflicted? I'm trying to get my question the right way. And I'm not asking specifically if you did anything with a guy at this point, but I'm thinking, were you like, I find him attractive and I don't know why I find him attractive because clearly I have a girlfriend and I shouldn't be finding him attractive. And the church says this, the other was just like, or was it more, well, that's interesting. He's a hot looking guy. Like, I mean, I can see a good looking guy.
Yeah.
I can see why my wife thinks he's a good looking guy. He's an attractive man. I can totally get it. Doesn't mean I want to have sex with him, but I can appreciate attractive people.
Sure.
But that's as far as it goes with me. But
Right.
were you thinking, yeah, I could see dating that guy? I could see thinking behind the church with him,
Yeah.
How far did you go with that?
Yep. There was one guy in particular, one friend of mine, and he was out. And, in high school, he went to a different high school. But yeah, I was walking along one day next to him and I'm just like, wow, I've got it made. My plate is full, and then I would beat myself down for those kinds of thoughts.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because so I think I think I was fortunate in that I was so oblivious when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I was having these feelings, at the same time I was feeling negatively about the church.
Oh, okay. So you
were
a little different path than some people take.
Yeah.
You're projecting it back on the church and not necessarily on yourself, or both?
So I was really hating the church. I was really hating God. I was really hating Jesus. I was hating the Holy Spirit. I was hating all this stuff. And see, that's really, really important because I was still recognizing them as actors in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I was still considering that they were a reality.
Yeah.
And then when I realized that atheism is a thing and it's just the lack of belief, well, then, I started to feel a lot better. But that took time.
So tell me that. I'm going to back up a bit. So, because you mentioned earlier you went into the Army. So this is relatively soon after high school?
17 years old, I went into the National Guard.
Okay, so you went right in. And were you still, because it's National Guard, you weren't gone for 4 years, right? You were
right
still close to home.
I was 2 years National Guard. On my birthday, I signed my paperwork. The recruiter was sitting right there with my parents in my kitchen on my birthday.
Oh,
We signed my paperwork to join. Yeah,
okay.
that's how motivated I was.
Right after high school, he graduated in May and he left in July.
Yep.
I mean,
So I was in for 2 years, and then
yeah,
I was in for 2 years. Desert Storm was my war, and then after that, then I went regular Army for 4 more years, and then 2 years of Army Reserve.
Okay.
So a total of 8 years.
You're on this track within the youth leadership, right? And and you're also having these feelings where it's a little conflicted. I'm just trying to get a timeline. Were you ever getting further than thinking internally within the church? Were you thinking, I'm going to become a minister? I am going to be just a youth pastor? Like, where were you going with that?
Nope. I had been accepted to Concordia College. I was fully intending on following that path. Okay. And the Army was an option for me. The military was an option for me. Okay. And I thought if I did go into the military, then what I would probably do is just go in as a chaplain.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
But then before I turned 17, I had that moment where I just said, no, this isn't it. I'm not doing this church stuff anymore. I'm just not doing it.
Oh, so you fully came to that conclusion fairly early compared to a lot of us.
Well, what I realized was that I was carrying around so much hate for what I had been taught. Yeah. And I was really unhappy. I was just miserable inside. And the one thing that really made me happy was the idea of being a soldier, being a warrior. Really? I come from a long line of Native Americans on my side, and on my dad's side and on my mother's side as well, on the German side. They were all the men in my family were all either in the Air Force or Army, no Marines, but yeah, they all had military service and they had all seen combat. So I would have been the first one to not have seen combat, but then Desert Storm shows up, and then we have that conflict. But I forget exactly where I was going with that, but
you were at least mentally for a while, you were on track to continue your leadership role and move up the rank. Also, were you, just because we both share the Scouts, were you also in any kind of leadership role within Scouts at this point? Because you're not quite aged out.
Absolutely.
Where are you at with that?
So then in the Boy Scouts, I became a patrol leader. I became the senior patrol leader. I was the librarian and I was the quartermaster because other kids just didn't want to do it. So I just took it up, and I did well with it and I liked it. And then there's an additional part of the Boy Scouts called the Order of the Arrow. You have to get elected into it. Yeah. And I became the chapter chief for Sheboygan and part of Manitowoc County. Okay. So I was the chapter chief for that. And, brought up attendance and, and I could speak and I could, motivate people. And here I am drawing on all of that ability from being able to speak because of the church. And I would listen to my pastors and I was emulating them. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what was happening. And yeah, I think the Boy Scouts was the last thing to go. Okay, that's actually I was going to ask you. How did you come out to them in any way? But I mean, specifically with religion, because they both, obviously the church is religious, but the Boy Scouts, it's quasi-religious. I mean, some groups are more than others, but ours very much was as a foundation. Yep. Like you said, I can't remember the oath now, but to God and country, it's in there. Yep. And again, depending on where that church or that troop is chartered, it can be very, very strong, or it can be just sort of casual. But none of them are really anti-religion, right? Did you tell anybody, or did you kind of keep that quiet because you liked Scouts, but you didn't want to get out, but at the same time you couldn't keep doing a lie? Like how'd you deal with that sort of thing? I kept up the lie. I kept up the lie. I kept up the lie with the church and came up with reasons why my schedule became too busy, so I couldn't do this anymore and I couldn't do that anymore. But but I'd still go to church. I would still sing the songs. I would walk the walk and talk the talk. And the reason that I did that is because I just didn't want to catch any flack. You know,
Yeah.
there's just, I figured it was just easier to keep my head down and keep moving on, but withdraw myself from any of the leadership roles because I felt like a hypocrite, felt like a huge hypocrite.
Yeah.
And in the Boy Scouts, I was standing, I'll never forget this, Mike. This is wild. I had a bag of weed in my pocket. And I didn't realize that it was in those pants. I had a little bag of weed, and I was standing there while we're doing the opening for our meeting on a Monday night, and we're doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm sitting here as the leader in front of all these boys, and I got a bag of weed in my pocket. I'm 17 years old, and I'm like, what in the hell am I doing? So I got out. I never got my Eagle Scout. I never did anything because I figured they're not pinning a Eagle Scout badge on me because I just wasn't, I wasn't Eagle Scout material, I didn't think. But I had almost every single badge you could possibly get. I had all these other responsibilities. And then just like when I was in the church, I started to come up with reasons why this, why I can't do this and why my time is being taken away. And you said it really well. The perfume and the gas fumes.
Yeah. The fumes will get you.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it's true.
I utilized
really
that
tough time to keep boys in, at that point, because they've got really strong distractions. And as much as canoeing and kayaking and hiking, that's a lot of fun. I love it. But I also kind of like girls a lot too. So why can't be both? Join a venture crew where they had co-ed. But it's interesting. So did you ever come out while you were in any of these groups? Ever come out as atheist or even bi? Either way, or did you cut it completely off?
So I never came out until about I want to say a year or two after I met my wife.
Oh wow!
Or I should say to everybody else, but to my wife, she knew.
Okay.
Yeah, and she knew that I was atheist before we even met. I told myself that when I go into my next relationship, there's just no way that I'm going to hide myself. I just can't do that.
Okay.
So yeah.
And how old were you then when you met her?
Well, I'm 51, and we've been together for 16 years. So I was in my 40s.
Okay,
so you were late 30s. Yeah.
Okay, and were you out in that period of time? Not to
friends and family or anything like that. There was one friend of mine that I was out to, and other than that, no. And one day I just decided I'm gonna send my stepkids a message on Facebook and let them know, and just be like, hey, if you see any posts from me on Facebook, I need you to know and not be shocked that I'm bi and have been all my life, but it just never came up. It never came up for any of us, so I never thought to mention it. But now I feel like I want to mention it, publicly. Yeah. And both my stepkids were like, hey, that's fine, Mike. No big deal. I treated it real easy and real bland, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me also, I think you touched on this very early in this conversation. When you grow up in a church or any organization, but obviously we're talking about church, there's a social fabric that your family is usually part of. The smaller the town, it's a bigger presence. And when you start to decide that this doesn't work for you, you lose a lot. You don't just lose that conflict and the question of what's going on. You lose sometimes your family, you lose your friends, you lose sort of everyone, the things that you did. I mean, we would go there on Saturdays and we had prayer and we would do the choir and all these things that we're doing. Boy Scouts, you were doing this, and all of a sudden, none of that.
Right.
Tell me about how that process, because that's a tough thing. I think a lot of people hang on to the social aspect of it long after their mind says this isn't working for me, but I have no other friends. You know, I mean, in a sense, they don't want to
Yeah.
lose all that friend, or even the people that aren't particularly part of that group. You from Missouri or me from Florida or these smaller towns, like as
Sure.
soon as I say I'm atheist, I'm on my own for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And if you say you're
Right
bi
on.
and atheist, well, you might as well move to Chicago because you're not welcome.
Yeah. 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 That's you're done.
Yeah.
You're just done.
Right.
So for me, so I lived a lie for so long, and because the church was connected to my association with the Lutheran school that I had been going to,
Right.
and that was a completely different community. I went to school in I went to a public school in a completely different area of town
Oh, okay.
from where the church was and where
Oh.
the school was. They were attached to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So those people in the church and those people in my school, they never crossed paths. So I had two completely different social groups,
Okay.
and I just slowly pulled myself away from the church, and I slowly pulled myself away from Boy Scouts because that was actually happening at a different church. So I had these three different locations that never the three should meet, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And I was able to manipulate things and live the lie, and I hated it.
Really.
I hated living that lie that I wasn't religious anymore. I got sick and tired of it. I'd come up with every excuse to not go to church anymore. I'd come home on leave, or we'd be celebrating Christmas. Oh, Christmas was just absolutely painful for me
Really?
because my mother and I would get my mother and my brother and I, we would decorate the house, and it was Christmas carols and all the singing and
Mm-hmm.
all the pageantry around Christmas.
Yeah. Sure.
And all of a sudden I thought to myself, I can't have that anymore. I can't take any joy in that anymore. Oh, how wrong I was.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with
How
you.
wrong, how totally wrong I was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started looking into, as I got older, the origins of Christmas. And I started understanding all these different things. And I didn't just listen to whatever it was that was said in the Bible or said by some man in a funny hat and a dress standing at the front of a church.
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah.
funny. They always talk about the problem with atheists is we don't have funny hats.
Yeah,
That's
we don't
what
have any
keeps us
funny
down.
hats.
You'd be so much bigger if we had a nice, good, funny hat.
We need
I have my
yeah.
atheist hat, but it's not as funny as like a post.
I like that. I got to get me one of those.
Yeah.
I like that.
Link is in the
Yeah.
description. But
Beautiful.
but yeah. So I think you're making, because you and I talked a little bit before. You're making it sound maybe easier than it was, or am I misinterpreting? Was it emotionally hard, or were you like, okay, I'm just kind of done with that and I'll slide to the left and then deal with this third group, like you said, or was it really more of a struggle?
There was a big struggle inside myself.
Okay.
I didn't have to hide who I was. I was just really, really sneaky at manipulating scenes, situations, and scenarios around me so that I wouldn't have to answer any questions, and I could dance around stuff like the best of them.
Yeah.
Because I had already had the experience of having to think on my feet at such a young age and be able to, maintain meetings and, organize this, that, and the other thing. It's like my wife said. She's a teacher, and she said, we're the greatest actors there have ever been. Because when you're up there in front of the class, you got to just keep it rolling.
Yeah, it's true.
So, and I became really adept at, like I said, manipulating situations so I wouldn't have to answer questions, doing all those things. But at the same time, I would lay awake at night and I would just hate myself.
Really?
Just hate myself for living the lie. And that really, really bothered the hell out of me. So when I went into the Army, well, then that's when my drinking started.
Oh, as a result of that, do you think? Or
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I had experienced a lot of physical abuse by my father. My everyone loves to this day loves my father, and him and I get along well now.
Mhm.
But he was just incredibly physically abusive. You know, just beat the paste out of us on a fairly regular basis.
Mm.
So I had all of that I was hiding, and I had all of that trauma. Plus, I had the trauma from no longer being part of Christianity. And
Yeah.
at the same time, I was still considering Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit as three real entities that I was very angry with. So you see how that was still working in me.
Yeah.
Well,
For
in
sure.
order to get rid of those feelings, I just turned a bottle up, you know. I had all my answers in the bottom of a bottle. And I did that for many years,
And when did that start?
And that started when I was about 17, probably
Wow.
about 17. Didn't finish until I was in my 30s.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, so tell me that. I mean, I've never been an alcoholic. Obviously, know people. It's
Mhm.
obviously a struggle, and it can be devastating. You obviously made it through, so good for you.
Yeah.
But did that, in looking back, did it make it worse or did it deaden it? Because I think it could go both
No,
ways.
it made it absolutely worse because I was dealing with nothing. I
Yeah.
was dealing with nothing. I was taking, I didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
No one comes up to an atheist, or no one comes up to a person and says, I understand that you don't believe that there's a divine power in your life. Well, let me tell you a little more about that. Nobody says that,
No one does.
but they will knock on your door and say, would you like to hear about your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
Or they'll go ahead and pack up their family and they'll move to the Congo and start pushing it on people over there.
Yeah.
When's the last time that you heard an atheist say, hey, would you like to hear about the Big Bang? This doesn't happen.
No.
So there I was. You know, I had no schema for what direction I was supposed to go,
Mm-hmm.
how I was supposed to handle these things inside my own head. So so what I ended up doing as a result of that, all of those thoughts needed to go somewhere, and like I said, I pushed them right at the right into the bottom of that bottle.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So I'm going to stop you real quick because I just happened to notice that Tyler has a commentary. He says
So
atheism is
atheism is
false.
false. That's really interesting.
I think he's a little misunderstanding what atheism is because
Yeah,
it's a lack of belief, which
right.
by nature can't be false. I can believe or not believe it, whatever. But okay,
Yeah.
let's hit Tyler's question a little bit though. In terms of, it's gonna be kind of hard because we don't exactly know where he's going. We both know where he's probably going with that.
I think I can. I think Tyler. I think what I can say is to say that atheism is false. I think I understand where you're going with it. I think you want to say, in your opinion, atheism is inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big difference between inappropriate and being false. Now, like Mike was saying, atheism is simply not believing in the divine at all.
Right.
And the only difference, and I'm just gonna guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I can't see chat, so I won't know. Maybe Mike will be able to let me know. But I'm gonna guess that you're Christian. And the reason that I'm gonna guess that you're Christian is because this is being broadcast here mainly in the United States. It's being broadcast in English, and we're not in India, right?
Right.
So if we were in India, we'd probably be talking about Hindu and the Hindu gods. So I'm going to take the guess and imagine that you're probably Christian. The only difference between me and you, Tyler, is that I believe in one less God than you. You don't believe in Thor or Buddha or Zoroaster, or I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, Zeus.
Ra, you know,
There's millions of them.
I just believe in one less. There's absolutely no evidence that I can find that points to there being any kind of divinity at all.
Mm-hmm.
At this world is so incredible with what we already know about it. We don't have to base our morals, we don't have to base our perception of the world on ancient scriptures, on ancient texts that were written by people who were around in the Bronze Age, who literally did not know where the sun went at night.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I know. You know, in as we mentioned earlier, and thank you, Tyler. And we're, you know, I'm always insisting when we do these that we are polite and we're civil, even if sometimes the response or the questions are not, because, you know, as we mentioned at the top of this conversation, we're not here to bash you. If you're a believer, and I'm one of those atheists that's, if you believe in what you believe, knock yourself out. I might have problems with what you believe. I don't have a problem with that you believe it, if that makes any sense. And some people can't see a distinction, but in my head, in my heart, there is a distinction. If it makes you happy and you believe it and it solves problems in your life, so be it. The problem becomes when you then try to push that upon me. And that's when we have a little bit of an issue, and we're going to, you know, depending on how involved you are or your religion or your group is with laws that can be placed on me, then we have a little bit of a problem with that. But if you're a Scientologist or you're a Christian or you're a Buddhist or you're any number Mormon, I don't mind. It doesn't bother me at all. We might have a friendly debate if you're up for it. But even that I don't really get into, because I don't want to necessarily change your mind. I can point out some things maybe you want to think about, but you can take it or leave it. But it's not wrong to me. And it's just like Mike, the other Mike, the Mike and Mike show, you know, if you were born in a different country, it's 100% guaranteed you would believe something different. If you're in Afghanistan, you mentioned India. If you were born in China, you were born in Afghanistan, you'd have, you know, Buddhist or you'd have Muslim. That'd be your belief. It is what it is. That's factually true. You might argue with that, Tyler, but that's not the case. But again, Tyler, I do appreciate your question. I really do. I enjoy talking with people. So please, if you have another question, as long as you stay civil, we'll be happy to address those.
Yeah. Something that was, I like to read anything by Christopher Hitchens or Daniel Dennett, you know, any of the Four Horsemen, you know? Yeah. And Christopher Hitchens said it very, very well. And he said, if you want religion, if you want those, if that's your favorite toy, then you go and you play with that toy all you want. And I am not going to prevent you from doing that. In fact, if anyone prevents you from doing that, I'm going to stand up for you.
Yeah.
But do not get confused, because you will not compel me to play with those toys.
Yes.
Do not compel me to play with those toys, because then you and I are then we're at loggerheads. And that's what happens here in the United States. We're seeing it. We're seeing it very clearly with evangelical Christianity and the government right at this moment.
Yeah. So. And, you know, for someone that thinks as we do, that's a problem, obviously. I think, quite frankly, it's a problem for a lot of people, even people that are religious. As you mentioned, Lutheran being Catholic light. I always think the same thing about Episcopal is Catholic light. Now, I was raised, though, mostly in Florida, which was mostly Southern Baptist. That is not Catholic light. That's as severe as Catholic is, if not more so. And I would imagine my friends and family, many of them would see absolutely no problem with an official religion, with our politicians saying this is exactly what we are going to do as a country, as a law, as a overriding system, which is interesting because that's, of course, what we would dislike about Afghanistan or Pakistan or everything else, you know.
Right.
But as long as it's their religion, then it's okay. That's what they want. So this is not theoretical. This is happening, and the evangelical religion is more of a political party sometimes than it is a religion, and it's effective. They're doing a very effective job at it. They're getting themselves out there and getting sort of entwined. But yeah, it's interesting. We got another question from Larry. Let's see. Yeah, they can't all be right, but they can't all be wrong.
Yeah.
He's exactly right. And
Yeah.
to your point, Mike, you made that point. You believe in one, less than he does, because
One less.
in one religion. There's millions of them out there. You don't believe in the one that he believes in, and Larry makes a good point that they can't all be right because they're obviously conflicting. But we would say that they could all be wrong, and I don't see that as a conflict. So other people may, but Larry makes a good point. I don't know if Larry, you're saying that's because that's Hitchens' quote, and if it is, I know. If not, I'm going to give you quote, or I'm going to give you credit anyways, Larry. Why not? You're a smart guy. Yep. But if it's a Hitchens quote, then he's also an equally smart guy. We've lost.
It's very well said, Larry. I really like that a lot.
Yeah.
They can't all be right, but they can all be wrong.
We'll
yes.
Hang on to that and remember that.
Yeah.
So let me jump ahead here. So you said you didn't get married. Now, you had one marriage or you had two marriages?
Two marriages.
Two marriages. You got married earlier before your current wife. How old were you then?
I was in my 20s, and I was still living that lie, and decided that there was no way I could bring a woman home from the army and not be married to her if we were going to live together. So we had to get married, and which was fine. I was all in for that. There was I'm not saying that I got married because I was pressured into it, but yeah, we were together for about 9 years and then divorced. Amicable divorce. And she had a different direction she wanted to go. I had a different direction I wanted to go with my life, and it just the two we weren't doing this anymore.
Right.
So then I was single for a period of time. And I moved from my hometown to Milwaukee, and that's when my life became immeasurably better. Because I started getting services at the Veterans Association hospital here. I started talking for everything. Everything. And for the PTSD, for the drinking, for all of the different mental and emotional and physical problems that I had. I have a bad back. I have degenerative disc disease, so there's pain that's involved there.
Yeah.
And dealing with pain is something that's that can be hellified. If anybody out there has chronic pain, it can take your life away from you. But and not to say that I had chronic pain, but I had a number of things that were comorbidities, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting in my psychiatrist's office at the VA, and I asked for a new one because I couldn't get any diagnosis. And he looked at me and he says, Mike, he says, you're not an alcoholic. He said, you have PTSD. And I said, what? He says, yeah, you probably have PTSD, or he says, I'm thinking maybe you're just barely on the bipolar spectrum. He said, but because there's been so much alcohol involved, we won't know until we get the alcohol out of there. And then I said, well, you know what I need to do? I need to get myself completely sorted out. So I went into a 45-day program.
Oh, wow.
Inpatient program for mental health. Now, when the VA accepts you into this program, they have a whole bunch of questions, and then your medical professionals will make their recommendations. And it's really interesting. The medical professionals said you don't have to go into the alcohol side, the AODA side. You just need to go into the mental health side of things. Mm-hmm. So that's where I went. And that 45 days saved my life.
Really?
Hands, no doubt about it. Yep. And that was because I was no longer in. So there were a couple things that were happening at that time. I was no longer in my hometown. I was here in Milwaukee, completely brand new setting,
Mhm.
completely brand new friend group, no longer weighed down by any of that stuff. And I was actually getting help, you know? I was actually taking the time to seek help so that I wouldn't keep going to jail or fighting because I was going to jail. You know, that's the reason I was going to jail. Is you can't drink and get in fights.
They
People don't
frown
like
on it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can only knock so many heads together before somebody's going to put bracelets on you.
Right. And not nice ones. So
No.
but tell me about that, because I'm always interested when people have vices like that sort of take over. And you had, you again, you kind of came out twice. You're an atheist and you're bi
Yep.
in America. Now you're in Milwaukee or whatever, but I mean, still, and but your background is puts a little yoke around your neck, in terms of how to think and deal with that sort of stuff. Not like you grew up in California, someplace where it's more liberal feeling,
Right.
But how bad did it get for you, if you don't mind asking? Like where,
So going to Milwaukee was amazing. Was amazing for me because my so I got headhunted to come for a job down here in Milwaukee. And I accepted. And when I went for my interview, my manager, Doug, I could see he was gay, and I'm sitting here thinking, man, I'm really comfortable. This is the kind of environment that I want to work in.
Yeah.
All the people have they don't have a closed mindset. They're progressive. It was a great progressive company. And it was outstanding. And I was able to be myself with those friends. And it was I have to say, Doug facilitated a lot of healing in me, not by even saying one single solitary word, but he was a role model in a sense that he just lived his life. He had always been out, and he had a very supportive mother.
Yeah.
And the owner of the company, super supportive. Yeah. And it actually went so that, how did it actually play out? So I became the head salesperson for the company. Then I went to prison because of my drinking for 2 years.
Natural step.
Beat somebody up, stole a car.
Really?
And, well, I didn't really steal the car. I moved it to a different spot, but they called it operating without owner's consent. I took his keys and I moved the car, and then I threw his keys on top of a roof. So
it happened.
Yeah. So anyway,
how long was that spent?
That was 2 years.
Really? Good.
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so now you've opened up a whole nother can of worms there, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You said you're open.
So I don't lose my job. They actually keep me on. They're like, Mike, don't worry about it. We know you're having a hard time. We're going to stick with you. So I get out.
Crazy.
Yeah, I get out of prison and I buy the company.
Okay, that makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I'm welcomed back with open arms, and me and a couple of people got together and we bought the company. The owner, during that 2-year period of time, had commingled his funds between a couple of different companies. A contract came due with one of them, and he couldn't come up with the funds for it. So what he did is he sold all the infrastructure. He sold all the stuff.
Yeah.
To us, and then we just built from the ashes a completely new ownership group, new name, new everything, basically doing the exact same thing.
You see,
selling software.
Blueberry Muffin says it was GTA in real life.
GTA in real life. Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that I never did, I'm so fortunate, Mike, I'm so fortunate, is I never let my drinking interfere with my professional life. People will say to this day, I don't know how he did it, but he did it. I never let it interfere.
Isn't that actually a fairly common trait of a lot of alcoholics? You become so good at being an alcoholic, which sounds bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a lightweight now. When I was a kid, 21, going to clubs, I could drink a lot. Now, no. You give me 2 drinks, I'm like, okay, that is way too many. And I can feel it.
Yeah.
Other people can feel it. Everybody's so much more attractive than I'm telling you. You are such a pretty person.
You're so beautiful.
You're all attractive. I'm taking you all home.
Yep.
That's 2 drinks. I'm already on the road to that. But alcoholics, you're 12 drinks in, and you're still functionally fine. Like you don't.
Yeah.
There's a point where you think you're fooling everybody, and you're not.
Yeah.
But there's a point though, long after normal people, where you're still fooling us. I
yep.
can't get my
Well, see,
head
here's
around
the
that.
thing. I absolutely would not have any alcohol in my system when I was about to do any business.
Okay. Yeah.
So I had very compartmentalized periods of time where I was drinking. So, yeah.
So fun.
The Mike and Mike show.
It's so fun. I think isn't there a radio show called the Mike and Mike show? I think it's already taken. I'm gonna go with it, Larry. We're gonna go with Mike and Mike show.
There we go.
So this actually brings up another question because Scott, the same guy that you saw, was it Scott? Now I'm getting my different guests. I'm sorry, it wasn't Scott, but nonetheless, doesn't matter. But tell me about so you're in jail for 2 years, county type of jail, not prison.
No, prison, state prison. Mm-hmm.
Lord, okay, so you're in state prison with the people that chopped off heads and the guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody in between, right? Shawshank.
Absolutely. Everything that you just said. Absolutely.
This is in Missouri or is this in?
No, this is in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Not that it probably makes a difference. I think they're probably all bad, but
right. We have to remember that's where each state, a state prison is where people will put. It's where we want the worst people in our society to go.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I'm not opposed to prisons. I get it. I want some people to steal a car, but whatever. But okay. Yeah. But now prisons are obviously we all have our thoughts of prisons, and I don't know necessarily true or not, but we have them. But I don't know that being an atheist and bi is the best image to have in a prison, or was it? I don't know.
No.
Tell me.
So my bi side never came out.
I would hope not. Right? I would think, and I
said to myself when I was right. So. And then the other thing is I was always just terrified of STDs. Yeah. I mean, when I was in the Army, I got to Fort Bragg to do 4 years there, and they have you watch a video about STDs and things like that. Let me tell you what, that put the chills down my spine, and I was so effing careful, and that's. Fortunately, I always kept myself out of any problems that way. So, but yeah, so it never came up when I was in the joint. Yeah. But being atheist absolutely did.
Really?
And yep, absolutely, because I would not stand for because everybody finds God when they go to jail.
Yeah, very common.
When they go to prison. And it just makes me sick. And then these guys say, you know what, God sent me to jail, or God sent me to prison so that I could become closer to him.
Okay.
And I'm sitting here absolutely mortified because of their crime that got them in there. It's crimes that I will not repeat on your show. You guys can imagine. You're all smart people. You folks can just about imagine. And I think to myself, how twisted could you possibly be to think that a divine? But anyway, I'm just gonna drop it right there because I'm gonna get up in my feelings about it because I had really strong feelings about it, and we didn't have anything for atheists to be able to, because they count it as a religion. They say, what religion are you? And I say, I'm atheist. And they're like, okay, we'll mark you as atheist. Okay. And that goes under religious preference. And I'm like, but that's not a religious preference.
Not right. No, it's a weird.
You know?
It's not uncommon. We get lumped in with a religion, like and some of us, they would say, well, it's a religion like bald as a hair color, or off as a TV.
Yeah, there you go.
You
Exactly.
Not really,
That's
but I
well
understand
said.
the need to put it into a bucket, but it's really not. It's the absence of religion, technically, right? We don't believe.
Right.
And I don't know. And I'm asking just because this is an aside, it wasn't even where I was going with this question, but just because we just said that. And you brought up Hitchens earlier, and obviously you're familiar with Dawkins. He has that scale, like it's a 1 through 7. I fall like on the 6. And for those of you that don't know it, I'll put it up as a screenshot later. But it's 1 is where you are absolutely 100%, there is a God. No question. 7 is you absolutely do know there is not a God. I fall on a 6, which is I don't know. I don't assume there is. I don't suspect there is. I live my life as if there is not. But I can be aware that there's a lot of stuff in this world I don't know. I see no evidence of it. And when I wake up tomorrow, I don't thank anybody. And I'm going to go the rest of my life and probably drop dead one day and never having believed. Unless this person, God, deity, whatever they are, wants to show themselves to me in a way that makes sense to me. And they would know which way would work for me because they are, in fact, a God. But where do you fall on that spectrum?
So if 1 is here, or 1 is here and 10 is here, I am as close as you could possibly get to 10 because I have no evidence.
Yeah.
I have had really strange experiences. I have had, some people say, supernatural experiences. I have a podcast that I was doing of my own for a little while where I talked about things that go bump in the night, all kinds of scary things, Sasquatch, aliens, all this stuff.
Right.
But I would always look at it from a skeptical point of view, but with the understanding that people from time immemorial have been experiencing something, right? And they can't all be crazy, right? Yeah. So if just one of them is accurately reporting what they're seeing, then we've got a problem. Either there's nothing or there's something, and both situations are equally disturbing because either we have a ton of completely bananas people, right? Or somebody has experienced something.
Now, would you
that
say
does not prove
argument for religion, though? Because you could have
but that does not prove that there's divinity involved. We didn't know where the sun went at night.
Yeah,
that did not mean in any way that it was being pulled through the sky by a horse past the horizon.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Just meant we didn't know.
We just didn't know. So I think that some of these things that people experience, we just don't have a scientific explanation for. We haven't put it inside the box yet.
Yeah.
Years ago, 1800s or 1700s, we came up with germ theory. We put that in the box, right?
All of a sudden.
We know how to utilize gravity to bend light. We can do that now.
Yeah.
We put that in the box.
There you go.
Anything that's
extra sensitive. The God of the gaps, right? In terms of religious, and we would say as atheists, the God of the gaps, where I have a gap in my knowledge, so it must be God. Or like you were saying, in 1700s, you're getting an infection because you have evil spirits. Like
evil spirits, right?
I had a germ, but they didn't know what germs were. So obviously, it's evil spirits. That's the only other possible answer, but that's what they go with, right? I got a couple more questions here. Let's see. So, Larry, again, at the same time, though, freedom of religion includes lack of religion. That's exactly it. Freedom
absolutely
of religion is free to not believe, which kind of goes back to our earlier question with the way that evangelicals are sort of worming their way into our society in terms of political and our governing bodies. That's what they would rather not have. They would be more apt to have you believe in maybe not Muslim. Let's not even go there, but you could have some different religions, but the lack of religion is never going to be on the table with a lot of these people, right?
No, absolutely not. No.
So I got one more. This one. Problem the existence of God, but rather people presenting their own crazy ideas as if they were a message from God. I've always been very intrigued by the people that have a message from God. I need to find some people that were, when in fact, I've got a gentleman I'm trying to get on the show. We're just trying to work out schedules. He was a Pentecostal pastor, speaking in tongues, the whole deal. And I didn't ask him yet because I want to wait until we get him on the show. But when you were speaking in tongues, you were faking it. Right? There was no evil or no spirit inside you that was making you blah, 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 whatever you're doing. You were clearly aware, consciously, you were faking it. So when people say this, they say, I got a message from God, and God told me to take this job and not that job. Or was it, no, that's just common sense, that job is there and this job is that, whatever.
Right.
But they attribute it to this God that you and I don't listen to, and we think, well, I've lived 50-something years of my life, and I've made decisions based on that. And this next decision is based on everything I've learned about myself, and I like or
based
don't
on
like.
evidence. It's based on reality.
Based on
Let's
reality.
call it what it is. It's based on reality.
But when people say what Blueberry Muffin is saying, they think it's a message from God. I'm always very curious. What are they really, really feeling? Like, you get them in a dark room and say, okay, tell me the secret. You're just saying that, right? You're not really hearing a voice. Of course, if they say, no, I'm hearing voices, I'm going to back out of that room real quietly because that's not good either.
Right.
Freaks
So sometimes I believe that some people are well, so as far as Pentecostal goes, as far as speaking in tongues and having these altered states, a person can get into what's called Green Berets have said that they've gone into this flow state where and special forces guys they say that they've gone into this flow state during a particularly dangerous situation. And it was as if they were able to just every single shot they took hit, every single decision that they made within seconds was just absolutely perfect. They reached these flow states. Those same states can be reached by people who are having what they take to be as a religious experience. I could do the exact same thing to you with magnets. If I put a large enough magnet in the right location near your head in relationship to another one, you will hear voices, you will smell colors, you're going to hear numbers. All these different things will take place. So what is happening when a person says that they're getting a message from God? They're either lying. Let's just be sincere about it. They're either lying, they have a disorder, which is totally possible, or they have an inner monologue that completely aligns with the faith that they have. And it is that inner monologue and maybe memories of what their pastor or their imam or whoever has told them. So that's how they feel their prayers have been answered. That they maybe even hear the voice of God.
Right. And they attribute those thoughts to it being God because God's a foundation within themselves, and that it's really no different than the God of the gaps. I don't know why I feel this or why I think this, but so therefore it must be God, and I believe in God, and God supposedly does speak to people, so this clearly must be a message directly from God. Like you said, or they could be actually have problems. There's some mental problems, and that seems as real. I mean, obviously people have, I live in Chicago, Milwaukee. You see people that are screaming at the sky. They believe there's someone there. They believe they're talking to someone. They're not. We all know they're not, but they believe they are. It's a legitimate feeling. It comes from because something's wrong, but they believe it wholeheartedly. And if that's what, and like you're saying, you go into the state, or you can just get yourself going. Okay, I don't quite get it, but I mean, apparently it does work for some people. Larry brings that to the point. This is one of my problems. I have a disdain for authority. I always have. So I've always had a problem with the preacher who hears what God says, but I can't hear it. Did you hear it? No. Pastor Johnson, he heard it. And nobody else in this room has heard it, but I guess he says, like, what response to John? He was working at, like, Walmart last time I checked, and now he's hearing from God. It's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know why God would pick that guy to talk to, but that's a very common thing. And people that go to church, they believe, and some believe truly that they are literally, that guy is tapped into God. He's literally got a one-way, back and forth with God. And he's going to tell us all what God has to say. Like, yeah. My disdain for authority does not allow me to go down that road. My own.
I like to tell people who have family members or people in their lives that are pushing what God wants upon them.
Yeah.
I like to tell them that they have to be real. I like to tell those people they have to be real careful. Because if they're going to represent what God wants, it says in the Bible, and this is God speaking, God says, I will take great delight in wetting my sword with the blood of those who mislead my flock. You better have it on the ball if you're going to be preaching something to somebody.
Right.
Because that's no uncertain terms. I will take great delight in wetting my sword with the blood of those who mislead my flock.
I did not know that one. That's a little rough.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
remember that.
And
pull that out at the right time.
Pull that out at the right time, and you're going to cause someone to at least, hopefully, take pause.
Take pause.
So that you can get a word in edgewise, or you could just leave it at that.
Absolutely.
As an atheist, we don't have to prove anything. We don't have to prove a single. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence.
Yeah.
I don't see the evidence.
Agreed. I just don't see the evidence. And I mentioned earlier, and I said it maybe somewhat joking, but I'm not joking per se. If there is a God or creator or whatever, that's fine. I'm willing to accept that is a possibility, because there's a lot of things that are possible.
Absolutely. And I absolutely agree with you. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm totally.
But
I'm totally.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm totally prepared to be incorrect on that. And I'm completely willing to say that, hey, if the rule is, you're going to go to heaven in a gold cube, or if heaven is a gold cube that's going to come out of the sky and land in Jerusalem 5 miles by 5 miles, with the river down the middle of it, coming out of the throne of God, and that's where I'm going to worship for the remainder of eternity. Well, all right, then.
All right.
That I don't have a choice.
Well, yeah.
That's what it says in Revelation. And I saw heaven descend out, and I saw heaven. How does it go? I can't remember the exact quote, but that's the description of what heaven actually is. In fact, for anybody who is watching, please look in Revelations. I think it's 21, and look at the exact description of heaven. That's what you're promised.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're promised.
Absolutely.
Not this magical sky place where everybody's going to be walking around happy.
On a cloud.
It's it's exactly like Christopher Hitchens said. It's a celestial North Korea where you're going to spend your time chanting "Dear Leader, Dear Leader, Dear Leader."
Yeah.
And eating from one tree, whose roots stretch onto both sides of the river that comes out of the base of the throne of God, and that's the tree of life. And that's the only thing that you will need to eat. Now, you could tell me that I'm inaccurate with that, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you're doing. You're going through other parts of Scripture and picking and using things piecemeal. Don't do that. Don't do that. Either the Bible is or it isn't. You do not manipulate, because guess what's going to happen? Somebody's going to, according to you, wet their sword with the blood of those that mislead his flock.
I'm gonna put that up on the screen after I do that, because I did not know that one. I'm looking that one up.
Yep.
I'll look up the other one too. You just mentioned. I was gonna say something. I can't remember what it was now. Doesn't matter. Whatever it was. But I'm gonna wrap up here in a few minutes. I got like 2 more questions. So the first question I want to ask you, because you had that period 16 to 20-ish, 22, whatever that was.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back and talk to yourself, what would you have told yourself to make that process easier? However you define easy.
I think in order to be able to say it to my 16-year-old self so that my 16-year-old self would understand it, I think I would say, Mike, you already know that everything in this world is wonderful and beautiful and just glorious without measure. Yes, we have some horrible things that take place. People do horrible things to each other. There are unfortunate circumstances, but just look at the whole of the cosmos and look at the whole of everything. And you get to be here during those years where you're going to be walking upright on this side of the dirt, on this side of the grass. So you have to love yourself and love everyone, love wholly and completely, and you're okay. You know, there's no God. I would tell the 16-year-old, stop being angry with something that doesn't exist. You have to get over that hump.
Yeah.
There's no God to be angry with. It doesn't exist. That would be like me being angry at a Coke can for whatever reason.
Right.
It's just that stupid.
Yeah.
Actually, a Coke can is a real thing.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
There's no reason for me to allow. I would also tell myself there's no reason for three invisible things, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and God, to have rent-free real estate in my head, because they don't exist. And it's a construct that I'm hanging on to. It's not reality. I think that's what I would say.
Apparently Larry agrees with you.
Thank you very much, Larry. I appreciate those words. That's really, we have to tell each other that. We have to, as atheists, as humanists, as people who, just as human beings, we have to tell each other that we are good, that we are enough, that we are important, because we are.
Yeah.
We absolutely are.
I'm gonna pull this question up, but we're not gonna go down this road with it. But I'm gonna give Catholic traditionalists. So Catholic traditionalists, you're just asking us to join the live stream. That's not what we do. It's not you specifically. It's just this isn't the conversation. This isn't a debate with Christians. Although I do appreciate your interest and I appreciate you watching. And you may not have been here at the beginning of the conversation. We're not here to bash religion. We're going to do it by the very nature of the discussion we're having, which means we're going to offend some people, and we're going to find things that we don't particularly like, or we, mock is probably not the right word, but I'm sure you'll take that as such. But this isn't the conversation. There's plenty of other channels out there. That's what they want to do, is they want to have that debate. I'm not looking for the clicks that come with this fiery debate. And I don't mind having a civil conversation, and you're welcome. And I actually would encourage you, throw some of those comments in when this gets reposted. Put some comments there. I'll go in there and address them. I might want to spend all day doing it. But I don't mind having a civil conversation with people. And I'm sure Mike, the other Mike, he wouldn't mind responding to those questions either, because we've gone through these things and we're not angry people. We just don't believe what I'm assuming you believe as a Catholic. And Mike was Lutheran. I was Episcopal. So we probably have a lot of the same core that we grew up on. We just went different directions, and it's no problem. But again, I appreciate you. I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate you commenting. I really do. I'm not being disingenuous when I say it. I really actually do. We're just not going to get into that. And we're actually at the very tail end of the conversation as well. I did have one sort of different question. It's slightly different from what we just talked about, which is what you would tell yourself. But if you were to meet someone now, someone just like you did, is watching this video, tomorrow or a year from now or whenever, like, and you ran and he sees what you're saying and like I'm having those same thoughts, what would you say to that person?
I think I would just ask the question, if the person is questioning their belief, I'm understanding that they're starting from a point of belief and falling away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So, or the other option, which is quite likely, they had no experience with religion, and now for some reason religiosity has come up in their life. I would ask that person to look at what is real, what is quantifiable, what is measurable, what stands on its own without absurd, and I mean this, absurd or magical thinking.
Yeah.
Magical thinking and absurdity does not come into play for me. I may do absurd things. I have done absurd things, but when it comes to my moral fabric, magical thinking is right out.
Yeah.
Absurdity is right out.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a few things to say before we wrap up. Sure. And that is, I firmly believe, and if anybody ever wanted to talk more about this, I would be willing to do it, but I don't know that this is really the place for that. We get our morality in spite of religion. We truly get our morality in spite of religion. Because I cannot think of, and this is what Christopher Hitchens has said, you cannot tell me one thing that I can do that you can do as a Christian that I cannot.
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying.
And at the same time, there are things that you are commanded to do by your God which are absolutely abhorrent and repulsive to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I will not have any part of it.
Yeah.
And those are commandments. Those are things that are commanded by your God. Quick question. Who looks at a brand new baby boy and says, yeah, let's cut some skin off that penis?
Yeah, that's never.
All right. I'll back off right there.
Yeah. That's or anything else that is a command, to split the baby in half, kind of stuff. All these things that we do or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all, again, we would obviously disagree with it. Catholic traditionalist is asking me, I'm not even getting into it, but he said, no, I can prove God. Put me up on that. No, man. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I appreciate.
So Catholic traditionalist, I do want to speak just for a moment.
Sure.
It's important to understand that while I realize how passionate you are and that you may feel that the hand of God has come and touched you in some way, shape, or form in your life, that there is no evidence. There is absolutely nothing that amounts to evidence,
right, for
any God at all. And there is. And I have to compliment you, and I have to. You're doing something that's very important, and that is you're very deeply invested in your belief, and I respect that. But at the same time, we have to get rid of magical thinking, and we have to get rid of the absurdity. We cannot include the God of the gaps inside of our moral philosophy. We can't tell someone that they are born flawed and then command them to be well. What is that? Come on now.
What is that?
So, but I do see what you're saying when you say that you can refute what we're saying. It just has never happened.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen until something comes either out of the sky or shows up on TV or whatever and proves that it actually exists.
Yeah, and I said this earlier, and I absolutely mean it. You know, if a God exists that knows all, sees all, that sort of God that most people believe in, then that God knows what it would take to make me believe, which may not be what it makes you, Mike, or Blueberry Muffin, or Larry, or anybody else. Could be different to all of us. That's fine. But that God would know that. If he knows where my keys are, and he knows where the red lights are, and he knows what job I really wanted, then he certainly, and I say he, I'm defaulting there, but that they would certainly know what it would take to convince me. And thus far, I'm either unimportant because he hasn't bothered to do it, or unable to do it, or they do not exist. And I'm going to bet on they do not exist. If I'm standing at the pearly gates and I bet wrong, then well, okay. But I'm not taking risk, right?
I'm not interested in, Christopher Hitchens said it, I'm not interested in living in a spiritual North Korea.
Exactly. I agree with you. Let's end on Hitchens. And also one quick thing to Blueberry Muffin. Thanks again. You've watched all the episodes and been a great series. Thanks. I do appreciate it. And thank you for watching. And I hope you will tune into the next one. But Mike, let me just thank you again for coming on. I was so happy you reached out to me to begin with, and I'm happy you came on and shared your story. It's always interesting to find out the challenges that people went through. And I really do appreciate you having done this.
Yeah, it's a real honor to be here, and it's wonderful to be able to communicate with the viewers and to spend some time with you, talking in a little more depth on everything. Thank you for having such a great show. I really, really do like it.
Well, thank you. You're very welcome, and I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for listening to Ask an Atheist. If you've enjoyed the episode, consider subscribing and leaving a review. You can find more clips on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.